Well, there's a lot going on. We've got other news to get to, including the story that broke during our show on Friday. Vice President J.D. Vance is denying claims that the search at the home and office of former National Security Advisor John Bolton was for political retribution. On Friday, federal agents were seen carrying boxes out of Bolton's home in Bethesda, Maryland. A source familiar with the matter tells NBC News the FBI is investigating Bolton for the mishandling of classified information. The source says CIA Director John Ratcliffe provided FBI Director Kash Patel with information that was the basis of Friday's search warrant. Bolton has been an outspoken critic of President Trump despite serving in his first administration. He was fired in 2019 and later published a scathing memoir about his time in the White House. The Wall Street Journal's editorial board is writing about Friday's search. The piece, entitled Trump's Vendetta Campaign Targets John Bolton, reads in part, quote, President Trump promised voters during his campaign for a second term that he had bigger things on his mind than retribution against opponents. But it is increasingly clear that vengeance is a large part, maybe the largest part, of how he will define success in his second term. His revenge campaign took an ominous turn Friday as the FBI agents raided the home and office of Mr. Trump's first term National Security Advisor John Bolton. It's hard to see the raid as anything other than vindictive. Mr. Bolton fell out of Mr. Trump's favor in the first term and then wrote a book about his experience in the White House while Mr. Trump was still president. Mr. Trump tried and failed to block publication. The president then claimed Mr. Bolton had exposed classified information, though the book had gone through an extensive pre-publication scrub at the White House for classified material. Whether Mr. Trump ordered the FBI probe or not doesn't matter. Mr. Patel knows what the president thinks about Mr. Bolton. And the president's minions in Trump 2 don't serve as a check on his worst impulses the way grown-ups did in the first term. The presidential id is now unchained. Mr. Trump made clear that he was out for blood against Mr. Bolton when he pulled the former advisor's protective detail after his re-election. Mr. Bolton is widely known as a defense hawk, and in 2022, the Justice Department charged an Iranian national it said planned to murder him. Mr. Bolton has had to pay for his own personal security, though he had served at the behest of the president. This is the kind of gratuitous viciousness that has increasingly defined Mr. Trump's return to office. Mr. Bolton has continued to speak candidly about Mr. Trump's second-term decisions, pro and con, including in these pages this week. The president may also hope the FBI raid will cause Mr. Bolton to shut up, though knowing him, we can't imagine that working. The real offender here is a president who seems to think he can use the powers of his office to run vendettas. We said this was one of the risks of a second Trump term, and it's turning out to be worse than we imagined. That's the Wall Street Journal. Also, it is what Trump said many times when he was running. He promised retribution. This is what he campaigned on, and everybody heard him say it. Everybody heard him say it. And many still voted for him.
Well, and of course, those who were saying it were mocked and ridiculed. But when you start your campaign by saying I'm your retribution, and he talks about, I mean, it's not hard to sort through that, Mike Allen. And you look and see what's happened here. I mean, a lot of people who during the campaign were brushing this off are now very concerned by what's going on. The Wolves, you know, and you look at this weekend, it has been especially challenging for conservatives who tried to justify their vote for Donald Trump last November. When you look at John Bolton, you see what the Wall Street Journal editorial page is saying here. Rupert Murdoch owned Wall Street Journal. You look at what happened with the socialization of Intel, the government nationalizing 10% of Intel. have the National Review and Eric Erickson and other conservatives coming out talking about, again, just how dangerous and how precedent-setting this is. It has been quite a weekend. Things have seemed to accelerate exponentially.
No, Joe, that's a great point. And we forget in the day-to-day coverage these tectonic changes, starting first with Bolton. I talk to people in MAGA world, and these are not like Paul Ryan Republicans. These are Donald Trump Republicans who said that raid, which unfolded live on your air on Friday, made them uncomfortable, that this seemed like, even for President Trump, this seemed like new territory. Now, important to note that we don't yet know the reason for that search. We have not seen the documents that were behind it. Axios' Mark Caputo has reporting that part of what they are looking for here had to do with the sharing of classified information. And so there may be more to this than we know. There's reporting out there that it goes beyond the book, so we just don't know. But I can tell you that even MAGA Republicans uncomfortable about it. Second, the command economy, the involvement of the American government in business, such a change, and it's the deal-making mindset of the president. And we've seen this time and again. We saw this in the U.S. getting a cut of NVIDIA chips that are sold in China. We see the golden share that the U.S. has that gives control as part of a steel deal. And then we see here 10% of Intel. Such a change. We talk again and again about how the Republican Party has changed, and we talk about Russia, we talk about trade. We talk about the deficit. This is a huge one.
Well, this is a huge one, and this is what started in Great Britain after World War II, where they started nationalizing companies. That ended a disaster. It wasn't until Margaret Thatcher in 1979 that the economic rot that had taken over Great Britain over 3 decades finally got reversed. Sam Stein, I want to go back, though, to John Bolton. And in the case of John Bolton, you had that happening on Friday, and then yesterday you had the president threatening Chris Christie, I guess because he didn't like what Chris Christie said in an interview on ABC yesterday. And so here we go. For those saying, oh, no, really? Because he's threatening Chris Christie now because he doesn't like what Chris says on this week. And you just sit and wonder that the people that are sitting in the administration right now making these moves, do they not understand that what goes around comes around? If they were so shocked and stunned and deeply saddened by what happened over the last 4 years, they're doing it this 4 years. What do they think is going to happen when Democrats get back into power? Like, dude, do we really want this cycle to continue?
Well, do they think Democrats will get back into power? I mean, that's the question, right? That's what Bill Maher was talking about.
Democrats will. Let me just assure everybody right now, they will get back into power. Our independents will get back into power. And people that are doing this right now will leave office with a cloud over their head, wondering what happens next. No, let's stop this madness.
Well, I mean, all this stuff ties together. You can even tie in the redistricting efforts done in Texas, right? This is all power play stuff. And the Chris Christie threats, in this case, reopening an investigation into Bridgegate is part of this. The Bolton raid obviously is part of this. Even the Intel story. I mean, he went from threatening the company CEO to saying he's a great guy because he gave him 10% share. And then another story over the weekend involving Wes Moore saying, look, we might withhold the money that was passed, congressional authorized money passed for the Francis Scott Key Bridge reconstruction. Because Wes Moore had the audacity to tell the president, hey, come to Maryland and walk the streets with me so I can show you that the progress we're making with respect to crime. All of this is part of the same theme, which is Trump incredibly pushing the boundaries, flagrantly pushing them of the presidency to get his will, and oftentimes in vindictive ways. And we're in incredibly uncharted territory here. You mentioned D.C. And the crime statistics. The reason that they're saying this is that they're not saying that we're fudging the crime statistics. They're saying the same thing about Chicago. So we're distorting realities. We're using that as justification for these federal troops to come into these cities, and it's all at the whims of the presidency. It's a bleak moment for us in the nation's capital, but it could be even bleaker if we start sending the U.S. military into Chicago, because at least with the nation's capital, there is D.C. home rule. So there is some veneer of legality here for at least 30 days. But the next steps, we get into uncharted territory.
And Sam mentioned Maryland Governor Wes Moore. We'll have him on Morning Joe later this morning. And he's right. The idea of just rewriting history, we're seeing at the Smithsonian, distorting statistics like at BLS, and now claiming that crime stats are fudged. This raid on Ambassador Bolton's home is deeply dangerous. And it comes, much like the threats with Chris Christie, it comes after President Trump was very critical of Bolton just last week. Bolton was out there criticizing the Alaska summit with Vladimir Putin. Trump hit back on Truth Social repeatedly. And whether an order was given from the White House or not, it's out there.
Yeah.
He's not happy with Bolton. It's easy for federal officials to take their cues from that. And then on Friday, we see this raid.
Well, that's what the Wall Street Journal editorial page said, Meek. It said they knew what the president wanted, and so they did it.
It certainly matches the pattern of his promises during the campaign.